in family law, at least my experience has been, a lot of it is referral based. And so if I'm not working for a period of time, then the referral base, it will start to dry up, and you got to be on it all the time.
Janice, thank you so much for your time. For our audience, we had tried to record this a week ago and lost power, and so it's so gracious of you to come back on our show. I'm going to kick it from the top. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your firm to our audience, that would be amazing.
Yeah. My name is Janice Mattingly. I'm an attorney in Carmel, Indiana, just north of Indianapolis, and I've been a solo practitioner for just over 20 years. I had a little stint with another firm while I was working between Nebraska and Indiana, and then came back to my own practice. And we are known as Carmel Family Law, based in Indiana, based in Carmel, just downtown Carmel. Basically, it's a suburb of Indianapolis.
Beautiful. Looks pretty outside today. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about the why. I think I remember a family situation that allowed you to or incentivize you to have your own practice. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So I had, before I went to law school, I was a paralegal for several years, only worked in firms, and never considered working on my own. I worked for a law firm in the north side of Indianapolis and was enjoying it. I was doing family law, and I also do some probate and guardianships and things like that too. So, but my husband was sick. This was 25 years ago now. My husband was sick, and I had 3 young kids. And when he passed away, then I couldn't work for firms because I couldn't give him that much time 8 to 5. I had to be available to go to schools. I had to go to doctors. I had to do all those things with my kids. And it just wasn't going to work. And they couldn't, and this was then, we couldn't work from home. I did work from home some, always, because I set up a computer as soon as I could and worked from home after kids were in bed. I think all lawyers do that, right? When we're first starting out, especially. So I've always had a place to work from home, but I was never at a point where I could have that freedom working in a firm to say, okay, I'm going to be working remotely this afternoon. That just wasn't an option. So I really investigated it. Picked an office. My office is a renovated home in Old Town, what we call Old Town Carmel then. And I contacted the guy who owned it, and I've been renting from him for over 20 years. And he renovated it to meet our needs. And we had other people in, other lawyers. First, we started out with all lawyers. Now we have other professionals in. That's where I got started. And then I did have the freedom because I worked for myself. Of course, I have court calendar and mediation calendar and all those things too, but definitely able to have my kids in. They felt welcome to come in if somebody was sick and I needed to have them in the office with me for a little while for whatever reason. I didn't have to worry about those kinds of things. So that was the impetus as to why I started my own practice.
I'm inspired by your ability to adapt. Yeah, obviously losing your husband so early is tragic, and you making that sacrifice to support those 3 kiddos is so admirable. As you were going through that transition and building your practice, did you leverage kind of this mindset of like, oh, I just got to make this work, right? Yeah. This is what I have to do.
No choice. It has to work. And that is, I am a person, I was luckily a business major in college. So I had some sense of business, but I also am really good at watching other people and saying, I like that. I don't like that. I like how they do that. I like how they do that. The other thing is I've only ever really worked in law firms. So I started out in high school as a co-op student, running, typing, sorting, anything like that. And then I was a legal secretary and then a paralegal for 8 years and then went to law school. So I've pretty much done it all. So I had some of that background as to staffing and what it takes and what answering the phone is like and how I want the phone answered and how I want this done and how I want that done. So I had some of that. I had a lot of that background, which I'm very thankful for.
That's awesome. And it allowed you to maybe accelerate getting up to speed and getting some cash flow in.
Right. So in Indiana, we are allowed to take cases with us. The client dictates where the case is going to go. The firm doesn't own the case. The client is the one who dictates that. So I don't think I lost any, or if I lost very few. So I started out with an established practice, which is great. But that doesn't start the money coming in, right? Because they had to pay back my other firm, and that firm had to be fully paid off before then, or they had to be set up a payment arrangement for them before they started paying me. I couldn't take that other firm's money. So I had a budget set up for 6 months of no pay for me. So I took a line of credit and set up a budget because I had employees. And so I had to set up a budget to make sure my employees got paid, my rent got paid, my utilities got paid, my computer guy got paid. And then I set up all of that and then was able, and it really was about 6 months before I was able to generate the kind of income that I really needed to. And I've never been sorry. It's always been a really good thing for me. And I think we talked briefly about this, but when you work for a firm and you have like a billable hour goal, that is the great thing about working for a firm first, because I always had a billable hour goal. So even though I worked for myself, I still had a billable hour goal. I still expected myself to bill this many hours. And if I didn't bill that many hours, then, okay, what am I going to do? Okay, I worked evenings, I worked week, I could manage my time, but I always had those billable hours, and I always checked my hours every month. Well, I check my hours every day, but I made sure I was on that track to make my billable goal, even though I was working for myself. And I think that's very important. I think that's where some solos or some small firms, they think, oh, it's June, I don't have to work so hard, I'll make it up in the fall. Well, the problem is if you're not working in June, you're not getting referrals in the fall.
That's right.
So if you're not calling people back, if you're not taking cases, if you're not working that, then in family law, at least my experience has been, a lot of it is referral based. And so if I'm not working for a period of time, then the referral base doesn't quickly, but it will start to dry up. And then, so you got to be on it all the time.
I think you said a lot of really important things there. The first one was establishing a budget. If you're going to start your own firm, you have to be ready to not be paid. You have to create a budget and have a line of credit or whatever it takes for some period of time, which I thought was really, really important. And then the accountability piece, right? You're on your own. That doesn't mean that you can just slack off. You still are in charge of the business, even more so. You have more responsibility now.
And people relying on you. So I can't say to my employees who take a risk and come to work for me, oh, after 3 months, oh, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. You're going to, I didn't want that. I had this thing going. And so I really wanted to make sure, obviously, when you have employees, you have to make sure they're taken care of first. You have to make sure your building is taken care of. You need all of those things. Premises insurance and now cyber insurance and all of these things, workers' comp and all of that stuff. You just can't just say, okay, I'm going to go practice law, because when you're a solo or a small firm, or like what you do, you manage a practice or you own a practice, then you're also an entrepreneur and a business person. So you can't just, I think there's some lawyers who say, oh, I'm just going to go practice law. I practice law, but I also run a business. I'm also an entrepreneur. I also have to do the marketing. I also have to do I have to see somebody's doing social media now, that wasn't then. But I have to make sure all of that is happening.
It's such great reminders. If you want to just practice law, go join a big firm.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then you got to take what comes with that, right? You got to, yeah. So.
Well said. Do your kids understand the sacrifice you made for them, and are they proud of their mom?
I don't know. I think they're proud of me. They're all very successful. So I think they're very proud of me. I'm very proud of them. I think they have a work ethic that maybe a lot of kids don't have. I don't know. And I like to think that I have, some of them I have a couple of my kids are very entrepreneurial in ideas and things. They work for people, but they're more they have ideas and so I'd like to think, I was in my mid 40s when I started my own business, and they're not there yet. So they may follow in my footsteps that way. I am really proud of my kids. And so after my husband died and I was a single mom for a while, then I married again, and I have 4 stepdaughters that I raised. So we have 7 between us, and they're all super kids, and they're all very highly motivated, very educated, and doing very well. So I think that I'd like to think that it was in my first husband as well as my husband now. We have always worked hard, and we've always played hard too. We've always tried to build relationships and build community and faith. And so I think all 7 of them have just great attributes that I hope they got from us, but I'm sure, we can't take all of the credit. But the 3 older kids that went through it with me, it is interesting because, you're going through this life change, you're going through a grief process. I never signed up to be a single parent. So you're going through all that and yet trying to make sure everything stays the same for them. I had never taught the muffler repair guy, my son's car, the muffler kept breaking out. I'm like, what? And finally I said, I don't get mufflers. Explain this to me, because I've now fixed this muffler like 3 times. I had to learn how to talk to people in that way too. So anyway, yeah. When you're a business owner and a parent, you're running a couple of businesses. I'd say I'm going to go home to my other job now.
Yes, it's just it's so commendable what you've done, and I'm so appreciative of your willingness to share with us. I want to end on just a quick question on lessons learned. You've been doing this for a long time now. You've been a solo for a long time. You're able to control your schedule, and you've built an amazing life. Is there anything that you would have done differently, maybe in the early years or the middle years, that you can give advice on to maybe our listeners?
I think as family lawyers, I tend to take too much to heart, and it interrupted my personal life a lot in terms of I would wake up at night. I would, and I think on one hand that made me a good lawyer because I did have that empathy. I did have that sympathy. And I would try to relate to my clients. But I think in the long run, it has caused me, excess stress probably. The other thing is that I wish I would have done, and that's the personal end of it. This is the business end of it. I wish I would have been better at collecting my bills. I am excellent at it now. That took a minute because I was, and especially 20 years ago, it is scary. And when you're so referral based and you're getting referrals from your clients that owe you money, but then you have to stop and think, okay, I'm getting referrals from people who aren't paying me. Are they saying to their friends, she'll work out a payment plan with you, don't worry about it. She's really fair. And so I wish I would have been a lot better at that. I think I would have, I probably would have made more money, but I know I would have had just not had those chasing people for money. Because I think if you give them the impression that you don't have to pay or that they can pay something, they'll pay everything before they pay you. They'll pay they'll pay their doctor, they'll pay their rent, they'll pay their kids' soccer fees, they'll go on vacation. I've had people who told me, I can't pay that bill, but because we're going on a Disney cruise. No kidding. Well, I can't do that. When we're going on this Disney cruise for spring break, but then when I get back, I'll set up a payment arrangement. I had somebody else just say, I had somebody who said, well, I just can't pay that. And I'm like, oh, well, let me call Indiana University and tell IU that I can't pay my bill because so-and-so can't pay their bill, and that I'm sure that they would understand. So I just think you have to be a little bit harsh. And what I also found is that I was the better collector. I have a staff person who's really good at keeping people on task, but there comes a point when I have to be the one. So the attorney has to be the one to make that hard call.
100%. I love it. Janice, appreciate the insight. Appreciate your time. Wishing you all the best. Have a wonderful fall season, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Mm-hmm.